Okay, it's time for questions to the Executive Office. We will start with listed questions. Members, question 12 has been withdrawn. I call on Andy Allen.
Principal Deputy Speaker.
May I just also wish Deborah Erskine well on the birth of her wee baby Olivia. I know that she posted on social media yesterday and described her as her wee heart warrior, so I'm sure everybody's mindful of their family at this time. I want to wish them the best. The Victims and Survivors Service supports victims and survivors of the Troubles, conflict, historical institutional abuse and mother and baby homes, Magdalen laundries and workhouses. Support and services are provided both directly by VSS and also through 47 community and voluntary sector partner organisations. Over the last five full years of delivery, VSS has supported an average of 7,000 individuals per year across 3 delivery areas. In addition, VSS, in partnership with its partner organisations, has delivered health and wellbeing support and services to over 12,500 victims and survivors per year within local communities, with the vast majority of this support being provided to those that have been impacted by conflict here, more than 12,000 people. Alongside this, over the past 5 years, VSS and its community partners have also provided application support to over 7,000 individuals in relation to Victims Payment Scheme.
Andy Allen for supplementary.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker, and can I echo the First Minister's comments in sending our best wishes to Deborah. First Minister, thank you for your answer. Can I ask you to provide clarification as to how many have applied but weren't successful in receiving support under VSS, and for what reason they weren't successful in receiving support?
First Minister.
In terms of those numbers, as of week commencing the 15th September, 11,853 applications have been submitted to the Victims Payment Scheme. That's payments totalling almost 108 million have been made to all eligible applicants, offering meaningful recognition of the harm that they have suffered. With the scheme now set to close for new applications in August 26, we strongly, and I take this opportunity to encourage anyone that may be eligible to get their application submitted before that deadline, and also to say again that support is available through a number of victims and survivors representative groups for anyone who needs help with the application process. In terms of the numbers that have been, obviously these are complex cases and complex applications, and in terms of the assessment itself, given in a lot of cases the historic nature of many incidents, it presents a challenge for those that are assessing, but I can say to you that the board remains committed to processing applications as efficiently as possible. They will continue to work with the representative groups also to ensure that the feedback that is taken on board in terms of any issues that may be arrived at. In terms of the actual number that's being declined, I don't have that, but I'm very happy to make sure you get that in writing.
Thank you. I call Linda Dillon for supplementary.
Good privilege, Karen Corlia, and can I also offer my best wishes to Deborah and her family on the birth of their beautiful wee baby girl, and I'm delighted to see that everybody's safe and well. First Minister, it's evident from your response, obviously, that Victims and Survivors Service involved in a wide delivery in terms of its portfolio. Can you, or do you agree with me that it's essential that VSS has a full board complement and that it is suboptimal? And there has been a protracted delay in making board appointments to the Victims and Survivors Service.
Yeah, I concur in terms of fully recognising the vital role that the Victims and Survivors Service plays in supporting individuals right across our society. So I am really grateful for the continued dedication of the current board. But yes, I certainly do agree that it's suboptimal that a permanent chair and a full complement of board members are still not in place. The member raises the issue of delay in making appointments. So just by way of explanation, I believe I've done so in the chamber before, but interviews for the post concluded on the 11th of March in 24, and then we received the unranked list of successful candidates on the 26th of March as per the Commissioner for Public Appointments Code of Practice. Then on the 19th of June we issued our list of preferred candidates, and the candidates were informed by HR Connect that they had been successful then on the 21st of June. All pre-employment checks have been completed. So we now need to have the public appointment made and make sure that we have the full complement in the board. I'm certainly determined to ensure that this is made without further delay.
Thank you. Call Brian Kingston for supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Principal Deputy Speaker. First Minister, you said last week that Sinn Féin will continue to stand with families in their pursuit of truth, justice and accountability. Do you now agree that former IRA members should come forward with their truth to the PSNI and the new Truth Recovery body?
So the member will be aware that both governments launched their joint framework last week, and I think all the parties will be taking their time to actually review that. And I think, unfortunately, without having the legislative text, it's very hard for us all to pass proper judgment in terms of what this framework will do and how it will deliver. Ultimately, for me, it needs to be inclusive, it needs to command the support of the victims and survivors, and that's all victims and survivors. And ultimately, it also has to be human rights compliant. So until we see the legislation, we can't actually properly assess that. But I think that the member, instead of constantly looking backwards and over his shoulder and trying to score points, I would much prefer you work with me and others to try and find a way to build a brighter and better future. That you work with everybody in terms of making sure we have a way to deal with the past that is inclusive and that we get maximum buy-in right across society. That's certainly my endeavour. I want us to deal with the past, to unburden today's generation from yesterday, and the only way we'll do that is if we work together, that the legislation that's brought forward is human rights compliant and hopefully can command the maximum number of support from all victims and survivors out there. And when I speak of victims, I mean all victims.
Call Paula Bradshaw for supplementary.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker, and thank you, First Minister, for your answers so far. Just to pick up on the joint framework that was announced last week, and I'm not asking you to pass judgment on it just yet, but Minister, your department does have responsibility for this support for victims and survivors, and I'm just wondering, are you going to instruct a review of current programmes with a view to better supporting victims and survivors under these new policy framework? Thank you.
Minister.
As the member said, as I did acknowledge, I think that we're all trying to work out exactly what this means legislatively. The framework translated into legislation could look completely different to what is being said in a framework document. So I want us to understand that, and I hope and urge that they will move to publish that legislation so that we all can look at it. But we have a strategy for victims and survivors. We've just launched our new strategy, and we've also opened a funding call for the 26-28 Victim Support Programme, and that call will close on the 6th of November to ensure that any new programmes are in place by the 1st of April next year. So this is a central activity that's needed to implement many of the commitments within the strategy itself by ensuring that our services are appropriate and to meet the changing needs of victims and survivors. The strategy will ensure that the right trauma-informed and victim-centred services are in place to empower and support victims and survivors and contribute to building a shared and peaceful future. And it also sets out the specific issues affecting victims and survivors with a particular focus in terms of their needs. So I think it will be inevitable that the Victims and Survivors Service will have received an increased level of communication, particularly given the framework publication on Friday, and that will continue. And it's important that we have a service that supports all people to understand what it is in terms of what the legislative text sets out in terms of the bodies themselves. So I think we'll have to keep that one under review in terms of making sure that we are fit for purpose. But I think the strategy itself is the right strategy, and if we can tweak in terms of the needs of victims and survivors in the aftermath of the framework, then that's what we should be doing.
Justin McNulty.
First Minister, in relation to the Troubles Permanent Disablement Payment Scheme, what is your assessment of the sad reality that many victims who suffered so-called punishment beatings, punishment attacks, punishment shootings by the IRA in their own homes, often in front of their own wives and children, with cudgels, with nails driven through them, with baseball bats, how those people don't qualify for that scheme? How can you explain that? How
Minister,
can that be?
Answer that whatever way. It's not related to the actual question.
All I can say is that our strategy for victims and survivors is to support all people that have been injured throughout the conflict here, and I think that it's important that it is all-inclusive, that we don't close the door to anybody, and I trust that the strategy that we have is the right strategy, and also encouraged new applications to come forward now that we've opened up our new applications process over the summer in August just past.
Call Malaysia McHugh.
I've got last question 2.
With your permission, I will ask Junior Minister Riley to answer this question.
Issues around cultural expression are some of the most challenging that we face as a society here. The FIC Commission considered these issues and made a number of recommendations relating to bonfires. These have been considered as part of the review of the TBUC strategy, which we are actively working through with officials. We recognise and understand the potential for bonfires to have environmental implications alongside health and safety concerns, and we know that bonfires can be used to display offensive messages, flags, effigies and other materials that cause offence. We want to be very clear that there is no room for sectarian or racial intolerance towards individuals, and acts of intimidation have no place in our society. We remain committed to building a peaceful and inclusive shared future for all.
Elisha McHugh.
Got I social Fahanya Dafraga Gajisha. Minister, could you outline for me what work is currently happening to address illegal, unregulated bonfires?
I thank the member for his question. Well, I suppose the starting point for addressing illegal, unregulated and dangerous bonfires lies here in this chamber, and it does command political leadership. We need to be honest and say that the lack of regulation of bonfires just doesn't work. As political representatives, we can't stay silent where there is a risk to health and safety and the environment, just as we can't be silent when there are violent sectarian displays on bonfires. Unfortunately, over the summer, where we were witness to some bonfires that not only put public health and safety at risk and polluted our environment, but were also used to scapegoat migrants and promote hatred. A focus on safety and regulation in no way threatens or diminishes cultural celebration. If we're to continue to make progress towards a shared and better society, we need to learn the lessons from the lack of regulation and look to regulation that places a focus on safety, public health and the environment.
Thank you. I call Jerry Carroll for a supplementary.
Thanks for that, Minister. Minister wrote to the First Minister and Deputy First Minister office a few weeks ago requesting a task force be set up to investigate the impact of the aftermath of the Donegal Road bonfire, potential impact on the people's health in the area. Can I get a reply to that request and also some action, hopefully, on it? Thank you.
Junior Minister.
Yeah, and I'll refer that back to the Deputy First Minister in terms of the response, but I suppose the fact that the land that you refer to in question is in private ownership, and it has been a significant factor. And we also understand that to mitigate the risk of asbestos fibre release from the pile and protect members of the public, NIEA undertook a number of safety measures at the site, and it is anticipated that the NIEA will shortly be establishing a multi-agency group to consider the asbestos issues to the Donegal Road site. But I will refer, just in terms of the response to that question, back to the First and Deputy First Minister.
Thank you. Cheryl Brownlee for supplementary.
Madam Principal Deputy Speaker. The Junior Minister is keen to promote the success of TBUC, a programme which brings people together from all our communities, but yet the First Minister's decision of councillors in Londonderry to exclude our armed forces from a local jobs fair. So how can the First Minister claim to be the First Minister for all whenever she is supporting and endorsing no-go areas in Northern Ireland?
That question is not related, Junior Minister. If you don't mind, take your seat. I'm going to move on to the next supplementary question, which is Mark Durkin.
The delay in the development of the Meanan Square site by TEO has facilitated further bonfire activity on that site this summer. Hopefully we'll see progress there in the near future. And while that might address where a fire is at, we also need to address what's on fires. Will TEO, will the Executive finally act on the FICT recommendations and introduce a framework that safeguards public safety and prevents this cycle of hate and lawlessness continuing every year?
Junior Minister Riley.
And thanks to the member for that question. The vast majority of people do celebrate their culture in a safe and respectful way, and they work really closely with their communities to make sure that they are family friendly and that they are enjoyed by all. But there is a small number of unregulated and illegal bonfires which raise concerns around safety, environmental impact. The burn effigies have racist and sectarian hate all over them, and they need to be challenged. And we need to prioritise our work, particularly through the Executive Office and other departments in good relations. We have a real opportunity here through the TBUC review, which also includes FICT, and also through urban villages, which are all currently being reviewed by the Executive Office, to build on what actually works, tackle the remaining issues constructively, and create conditions where celebration are safe, they are respectful, and they are for everyone.
Thank you. I call William Irwin. Thank you, William. First Minister.
Engaging with leaders from across these islands and internationally is very important if we are to promote this place and deliver across the full range of our programme for government ambitions. Since the restoration of the institutions, ensuring that we are representing our interests and optimising the opportunities to grow a globally competitive and sustainable economy has been at the heart of everything that we have been doing. We have engaged with the governments in London and Dublin to discuss how global developments such as changes to international tariffs could impact on our region and to ensure that our interests are understood and represented. Over the past year, the Deputy First Minister and I have met with a range of leaders from the world's largest economies, both at home and abroad. The USA, China, Japan, Germany, France, and used these meetings to promote our place and to show that we are open to partnerships and that support our economic growth. The Deputy First Minister and I led a business delegation to North Carolina back in March, supported engagement by businesses and academia. This is a good example of how we can work in partnership with stakeholders here to deliver on our shared objectives and build lasting relationships that deliver benefits for all.
Thank you. I call William for a supplementary.
Thank the Minister for her response. The United States is a critically important economic partner to the UK. Can the First Minister outline what she has gained by not attending the state banquet for President Trump last week?
First Minister.
I very much value our Irish-American links. Indeed, successive American administrations have been very much part of bringing about our peace process. But you're referring to a banquet in Westminster last week, which I chose not to attend, and rightly so, because I don't see how a benefit was going to be achieved from attending a state banquet at a time whenever the children of Gaza are starved to death. So I think that I made my view known on that issue. I did not block the Deputy First Minister from attending. She went to the thing and that was absolutely her call. I'm very comfortable with my decision.
Call Pat Sheehan for supplementary.
Agad a ceann cóir agus buíochas leis an céadara as ucht a fragri. The First Minister will have no doubt seen the report issued through the UN Human Rights Council, which provides definitive confirmation that the Israeli state is engaged in genocide against the Palestinian people. Would the First Minister agree with me that the international community must take a principled stand against the ongoing genocidal attacks and the aid blockade against the people of Gaza?
First Minister.
Yes, I absolutely agree, because I think any objective mind looking on and seeing how the situation is continuing to deteriorate in Gaza is just completely unconscionable, intolerable, absolutely inhumane. Like, how did we arrive at a position where women and children are being murdered daily and the international community is standing by and doing nothing? How do we arrive at a point whenever there's a man-made famine in Gaza unleashed on an innocent population who have no repercussions? And how are leaders of a state carrying out genocide allowed to be openly and unapologetically welcomed around the world? This is the biggest humanitarian disaster of our generation, and it's fallen right in front of our eyes, but yet Israel continues to act, to be let off the hook, and even worse, encouraged in some quarters. This can't be described as a war, because this is genocide. This is genocide, it's ethnic cleansing, and it's state-directed killing, and we are all need to do everything that we can to end this horror for the Palestinian people. But that can only come about whenever the international community stands together, where the international community says no. So what we need to see is an immediate ceasefire. What we need to see is humanitarian aid. What we need to see is the release of all prisoners and hostages. What we need to see is immediate end to this man-made starvation. And that's where the focus of the international community must be in terms of bringing this to an end.
Thank you. I call Matthew O'Toole.
Deputy Speaker, First Minister, let me say I agree with your decision not to go to the banquet. I think it was the right thing to do. But can I ask that in relation to having a values-based international relations strategy in the Executive Office, reflecting the fact that there is, as you say, a genocide happening in Gaza, that democracy around the world, including sadly in North America and the United States, is under threat, what steps are you taking to ensure a broader values-based international relations strategy for the Executive?
First Minister.
Yeah, I think in terms of the drafting of our new international relations strategy, then I think that is reasonable, that is the approach that we take. How, you look on, I think, aghast at how, in particular in London, that they've decided to wine and dine the President of the United States, whilst his actions are clearly facilitating what's happening in Gaza. So I think that you can't sell your soul for a pound, and I think that any of us that have a soul and a heart would look on at what's happening in Gaza and understand why we shouldn't engage with those that are responsible for inflicting this horror and pain on the Gazan people.
Thank you. I call Gary Middleton. First Minister.
The investment in Aberdeen aligns with the Executive's vision of building a strong, sustainable and regionally balanced economy. We're committed to investing in the North West, and we are already seeing the positive outworkings of that commitment, including the expansion of Magee, the city deals and projects that are being delivered as part of the Urban Villages funding. Specifically, since taking on the Aberdeen site in 2016, the Executive Office has invested over £37 million to develop and regenerate it. This investment, along with £40 million of private finances, has been transformative for the site alone, attracting a variety of new businesses and creating more than 360 jobs. In March, we officially opened the new headquarters of software consultancy firm Alchemy Technology at the state-of-the-art Aberdeen Plaza, and this was followed a few months later by the Ernst & Young opening in its new North West regional office at the Plaza. In addition, and then even in the last week, we've had the Seagate announcement also. In addition, the site has become a vibrant hub for creative, cultural, sporting and charitable and other community-led events. The Executive Office has also committed £3.3 million of funding towards the DNA Museum, which is a key part of the overall redevelopment of the square, and junior ministers are looking forward to visiting Aberdeen later this week to see construction getting underway on this important new regional visitor attraction. The Department will continue to work with tenants and stakeholders to showcase Aberdeen, ensuring that it supports the region's rich creativity, the innovation, the talent and the skills, and plays its part in future growth of the site.
Call Gary Middleton.
Thank you, Madam Principal Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the First Minister for her response, and I welcome the progress at Aberdeen. First Minister, can you outline, in terms of discussions with the Council and the potential transfer of Aberdeen to the Council, where that is currently at, and what assurances can you receive within your office that it will remain a shared space? Because I do have some concerns, given the track record of councillors, that it would remain the case if it went to the Council.
First Minister.
I think, as a representative of the North West, I think it's important that we do make sure that we underline the sheer scale of investment that we've seen in the North West in recent times, and I think all be buoyed up by that positivity. But you make the point about the site transferring over to the Council. That's been ongoing for quite a considerable period of time. But realising the full potential of the Aberdeen site for the whole of the city, the North West, and indeed just the North West more generally, is a shared priority across multiple stakeholders in the North West, and we're focused on delivering on those shared ambitions and improving processes and partnerships to achieve them. Discussions are still ongoing with the Council as we speak to transfer to progress the transfer of the site, and the full transfer is complex, we're told, and it's taken some time to complete, but I can tell you that it is all in train and actively being worked on.
Call Padraig Delargy.
Last Kincollia. First Minister, I want to thank you and the Deputy First Minister for your attendance at both Seagate and Foylport recently, and I also want to welcome the North West Leadership Collective, who are here in the gallery today, for their fantastic work on the area. Could you outline what impact the fact that the Executive have agreed a regional balance strategy, what impact has that had on the North West to drive investment and make Derry and the broader North West an even more attractive place to live in, to work in, to invest in?
First Minister.
Thank you for that, and I didn't know that we had visitors from the North West, so you're very welcome. I think that regional balance being put at the heart of the economic strategy here was a very deliberate approach to ensure that we do unlock the full potential of the North West, that we ensure that investment is shared across the board. And when I sometimes listen to a lot of negativity, I think there's so much positivity around the North West right now. There's so many things that have been delivered and will continue to be delivered, like even in the last number of months, the Seagate announcement, the EY announcement, we were at the Foylport last week. I mean, what the plans they have there as well are also like amazing and going to make it a even more wonderful place to live and invest and to study. And I really very much I'm determined to continue to working with all ministers around the executive table around how we can deliver even more in the North West. But I think the fact that we have regional balance at the heart of the economic strategy, that we saw the headlines last week, 21% increase in the numbers of people applying to Magee. more investment in the last year in Magee than there has been in the last 10 years. The city deal, the jobs announcements that I talked about, the City of Derry Airport investment, the North West is thriving. The North West is a real economic hub and an engine in which to be built upon even further.
Call Sinead McLaughlin for supplementary.
Thank you, First Minister. There is no regional balance in the North West, and I don't know how to kind of bring that out loud and clear. 1,000 jobs were announced last week in Belfast, and really it is the crumbs that we're seeing in terms of job announcements for Derry. But that aside, you have talked about regional balance and the need for it. Can you spell out exactly what that means in practice? What specific measures or indices have you built in to the strategies to ensure real accountability for delivering regional balance and fairness in the North?
First Minister.
So for the first time ever, right at the heart of the economic strategy for this executive, regional balance is written large, and it is an objective in terms of Invest NI, and you can very much see that already starting to bear out. So I would encourage you to be more positive about what is being achieved in terms of the wider North West. Regional balance is at the heart of executive strategy now. We saw the increases in Magee that I've just mentioned. You may want to wish them away, but these are actually positive developments, and we're going to continue to build upon them even more in the time ahead. When I look at even EY's 120 jobs, the Seagate announcement last week was a £115 million investment in the North West. That's been underlined by the largest ever Invest NI contribution towards research as well. So this is regional balance in action. This is actually us delivering and doing things. Does that mean that that doesn't mean that we were resting our laurels? These advancements are great, but we have much more to do. I'm going to work with all ministers to ensure that more is delivered for the North West.
Call John Burrows for supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, would the First Minister agree with me that as public money was invested in Ebrington Square, that all lawful organisations should be welcome there at events including the UK Armed Forces?
First Minister.
Well, it's not really related to the question, but I have made my position clear in terms of the jobs fair. I think the locally elected councillors made the right call.
I call Andrew McMurray.
Question number 5, please.
Minister.
Junior Minister Riley will answer this question.
Junior Minister Riley.
As of last week, 11,853 applications have been submitted to the Victims Payment Scheme. Payments totalling almost £108 million have been made to eligible applicants, offering meaningful recognition of the harm that they have suffered. The Board is progressing applications as efficiently as possible and continues to work closely with victims and survivors groups to make sure that any issues are flagged and also addressed. Following a recent review of operations, the Board has established a business transformation team to improve on the processes. This has already had an impact in terms of the value of awards paid out, which is reflected in the year-on-year increase in payments. But there is more work to do. We are also aware of the issues in terms of the length of time that it can take to reach a determination. But we are confident that the Board is doing all that it can to make sure that applications are considered as quickly as possible. With the scheme set to close for new applications on August 26, we strongly encourage anyone who might be eligible to submit their application before that deadline. Support is also available through a number of sectoral organisations: Wave Trauma Centre, SAFF, Relatives for Justice, the Ely Centre and Ashton, for anyone who needs help with the application process. And I just want to put on record our thanks to those groups who do offer tremendous support and advocacy for victims and survivors as I go through this process.
Andrew McMurray.
Principal Speaker, and we're all dismayed by the recent reports of applicants having to wait for a long time for their applications to be assessed. Can you please outline what additional resources are going to be allocated in order to try and speed these applications up?
Junior First Minister, you have less than a minute.
Thanks for that question. Yeah, we completely understand the concerns that have been raised regarding the time that it is taken to process the applications. Each application to the scheme is unique and with its own complexities, and the progress of applications can require additional or supporting information from external organisations. There are some challenges as well, getting access to medical information, but our officials are working really closely with health colleagues to improve on that process. Cases can also be adjourned to allow further information or evidence gathering to allow applicants or their representatives to comment on specific issues. We are assured, though, that the board is keeping processes under review to look for ways of improving for the rate of flow of cases, and just as well in terms of prioritising.
Time's up.
Sorry.
Thank you. That ends the period for a list of questions. We'll now move on to 15 minutes of topical questions. Topical questions 2, 5 and 6 have been withdrawn. I call Matthew O'Toole.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. First Minister, you were elected to your role in an historic moment in this chamber last February, and we all know the reasons for that historic moment. It's because this state was founded in inequality, supremacy and bluntly top-dog politics. Do you agree, on that note, with your predecessor, Martin McGuinness, that we should abolish the absurd differential between the First Minister's titles and return to something more like equality?
First Minister.
Well, the member will know that this is the remit of our Assembly and Executive Review Committee, so that committee is actively working its way through that. We all fought the election on the rules as they currently stand. That I think until we get to a point where potentially there is any change brought forward within that remit of that committee, then we all can make our own choice in terms of where we might go with it next.
Matthew.
First Minister, you were First Minister. I asked your opinion. I didn't ask what the AERC is doing. I'm on that committee, so I know. The differential between those titles was born out of unionist insecurity, to be blunt, in 1998. It was a continuation of, bluntly, the top-dog supremacy politics of the Orange State that you and I both want to move away from. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with yourself in 2020, because you called yourself the Joint First Minister then? Do you agree with your predecessor, Martin McGuinness, that it is time to abandon that kind of top-dog politics and move towards joint titles?
First Minister.
Very clear to you. You are on the Executive and Review Committee. That is the forum in which we can discuss these issues. I am the First Minister, the Deputy First Minister, and it is a joint office. I've never shied away from that. I myself used the joint office title previously also. But let the AIR Committee do its work. You're on the committee, so you're familiar with it.
Matthew. Question 2 has been withdrawn. I call Gary Middleton.
When taking office, you said that you would be a First Minister for all. Your commentary following the decision by councillors in Londonderry in relation to the jobs fair shows that you're unwilling to set aside party politics and show leadership. First Minister, do you want the armed forces to butt out of all of jobs fairs in Northern Ireland, or is it just ones under nationalist control?
First Minister.
And again, the member will know that I have made my position clear on this. I think the democratically elected local councillors know best what is good in their own community, and I think given the history of the British Army in Derry, I stand over that. I think that was the right call for them to make in terms of what happens at a job fair. If anybody wants to join any of the British military, they can do it anywhere else. They can go online, they can apply whatever way they wish, but I think the sensitivities around Derry are not lost on people.
Gary Middleton for supplementary.
The First Minister hasn't answered the question. It was asked, does it apply to all councils in Northern Ireland? But First Minister, do you not see the hypocrisy of your commentary and commemorating in relation to those victim makers, but you're unwilling to allow citizens within my community to engage with the armed forces within their council? Do you not see the hypocrisy of that?
First Minister.
Do you not see the hypocrisy in going against what is the democratically elected local councillors' decision? So I back the councillors in their decision. I think it was right and appropriate, and I think that you should be respectful also of that council decision, because they took it in the best interests of the community that they serve.
Timothy Casson.
Well, Deputy Speaker, First Minister, on a number of occasions, both in this chamber and in committee, I have sought clarification from you in relation to biological reality, to which you refuse to answer. Let me put the matter to you more directly. As someone who holds office in a department with responsibility for equality, can you, as First Minister, clarify, can a woman have a penis?
For God's sake. First
That's
Minister.
absolutely ridiculous, and you're making a show of yourself. You are fascinated with the definition of a woman. I think that says a lot about you.
Timothy Casson for supplementary.
At the weekend, the DUP leader rightly attacked those who refuse to accept biological reality. Yet you head a department alongside Miss Pengelly, which retains its links with the discredited Stonewall organisation. Let me ask you directly, Stonewall believes that a woman can have a penis. First Minister, once again, do you?
I think I'm going to have to help you out, maybe with a bit of biology lesson. I was born a biological baby girl. I grew into a teenager, and I'm now a fully fledged woman. There are also trans women in our community, and if women can be supportive and inclusive of trans women, then you should also. But I fear, like the trans community fear, all you're interested in is stoking up fear and tensions and hurt. Have a bit of sensitivity, have a bit of decency.
Questions 5 and 6 have been withdrawn. I call Doug Beattie.
Thank you, Madam Principal Deputy Speaker. First Minister, I welcome the recent Victims and Survivors Strategy 2024 to 2034. It refers on multiple occasions for a victim-centred approach, victim-centred on trauma and victim-centred on dealing with the past. Can I ask the Minister, with the Executive Office's engagement with the UK and the Irish Government on the new Legacy Commission, is the Minister able to give assurances to the victims and survivors that the Legacy Commission meets that clear objective of being victim-centred?
First Minister.
So, as I said earlier on, because the framework's just been published on Friday, we don't understand what the legislative text yet looks like, so I think we need to understand that. And then, of course, there'll be a role in terms of the Victims and Survivors Service supporting all victims and survivors. But we can't engage on what the remit of the body is yet until we actually see what the legislative text says. But we will in due course.
Doug Beattie for supplementary.
Thank you for the answer. I guess I'm slightly concerned now, because I would have imagined that if you and the Deputy First Minister in the Executive Office actually created the Victims and Survivors Strategy 2024 to 34, that you would have sight of what that legislation is going to say. Therefore, you would understand what it was going to say. Therefore, you'd be able to stand up and say, this whole process, and I'm talking process, not legislation, the whole process is actually victims and survivors centred.
First Minister.
I mean, it's key to its success that it is victims and survivors centred. I absolutely agree with you, but it's the way in which the British Government have chosen to launch the framework. So jointly with the Irish Government on Friday, we see this framework. But then there's a period between that and actually seeing what a legislative text looks like in terms of the makeup, the body, the remit, how it operates. We still haven't had sight of that. I don't believe anybody has had sight of that. I also don't agree that that's not good enough. I mean, I think they should have been consulting us. They should have been talking to us about this. I know that all parties would have engaged across the board, but of course the Executive Office should have been consulted, but that falls on the feet of the British Government in terms of their approach.
I call Jerry Kelly.
First Minister, I'm sure you're very aware there was something around 25,000 Gaels took to the streets of Dublin at the weekend in support and to highlight the issues of facing Irish language speakers. So will the First Minister join with me in commending those who went out on the streets on this very important issue?
First Minister.
Yeah, my Shiv, the huge crowds in Dublin at the weekend were really heartening. I think it shows the vibrancy in terms of the Irish language community, but certainly to take to the streets in terms of a march for equality, for fairness across the board, was a testament to the strength and the energetic revival, I think, of the Irish language here. Gaelic is continuing to thrive in communities right across the island, and what has been highlighted widely and was at the purpose and the heart of the large rally on Saturday. It needs much more investment, north and south. It needs the financial contribution, but it also is something to be celebrated. So I suppose there can be no complacency in terms of or contempt from those within the executive in terms of responsibility for its development. So in that regard, I want to work with all parties. I want to work with executive colleagues, ensuring that the Irish language is fully supported and allowed to flourish. And I think we all have a clear duty in terms of playing a positive and proactive role in ensuring that the language grows for generations to come. So we need to work together to make sure that we do that and ensure that it is invested in.
Jerry Kelly for supplementary.
The First Minister then, and I think she's may have already alluded to this, do everything that she can to continue to commit to support the development of the Irish language, because there's much more to do.
Minister.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. There is so much more to do, I think, to build upon the huge strides forward, that to allow the language to grow. There's so many children being educated through the medium of Irish today, and they want to see their language and hear their language in the community in which they live. So I think that ongoing revival, the vibrancy of the language and the culture is something that is to be celebrated, and it creates huge opportunity, I think, as well for our society. We have the appointment of the Irish Language Commissioner. It's imminent in terms of that role being advanced, and I think even the role that that Commissioner will play in terms of promoting the language and ensuring that it's protected across our public services and everyday life is going to be a really important interjection in terms of advancing things. And then I know that even within Belfast City Council, it's on the verge of adopting a transformative Irish language policy, which would be the first of its kind actually in the north, and I think that will further improve the visibility of the language. So we can and we must do more. We must keep working at it. We need to see an Irish language strategy brought forward by the Communities Minister, and that's going to require political will, and it's going to require genuine cooperation to ensure that the language does in fact thrive for generations to come.
Call David Brooks.
Deputy Speaker, there's no indication yet of any new companies investing in Northern Ireland on the basis of supposed dual market access, as we've heard from InvestNI previously, but there is growth in our aerospace and our valuable defence sectors. Can the First Minister outline what she is doing for those businesses globally?
First Minister.
I think dual market access is a prize that we all need to grab together. I mean, the fact that we have access to both markets is something that is the envy of many other places. So, in fact, there has been companies of late that have pointed to dual market access being the contributor towards their growth. So that's a positive thing. And I note even in the Murphy report last week, it talks about how we really need to avail and tap into this dual market access and really sell our wares. And I think at the heart of the economic strategy is to very much promote the dual market access, and we continue to see benefits of that in the time ahead. And I think that we need to then work to support all of our industries right across the board, and I think that the Economy Minister is doing a great job in that regard.
David Brooks for supplementary.
At a vital time for this sector, Madam Principal Deputy Speaker, the First Minister boycotted events last St Patrick's Day. She boycotted the recent state banquet at Buckingham Palace, and she referred to the UK's government recent investment in that sector, that she was incredulous. Does she think that behaviour is helpful to assisting those businesses to grow here in Northern Ireland?
First Minister.
So I think it's important that we continue to have all of our business engagements. I think that's right and proper. That we very much have a message that we're open for business, that we're a great place to live, to work, and to invest. That's the continued message that we have whenever we engage with many. And I think that's the appropriate, approach from us as an executive office, but also from the Economy Minister. I noted earlier on the level of engagement that we've had with all different international investors, with all different people from all different countries in terms of the big players in terms of investment. But don't sell your soul just in terms of short-termism, just to go to banquets and sip champagne whilst people in Gaza are starving.
Excuse me, I call Stephen Dunn, please.
Speaker, can I ask the First Minister for an update into the inquiry into mother and baby institutions and on the redress scheme?
First Minister.
This is ongoing in terms of our work, and the committee are actually working their way through all the pieces of legislation. This is a huge area that we want to get right, and we're very determined to make sure that we do everything that we can to support all those victims and survivors. I'm glad to say we're making some progress with a plaque that we're going to erect in the Great Hall. This was something that was a commitment that we've made previously. So we're hopeful actually we'll be able to do that in the autumn time. So that's another advancement in terms of this area.
Stephen Dunn for supplementary.
Speaker, is there any further update in terms of the time frame for delivery through the redress scheme for these innocent victims right across Northern Ireland?
So we're working our way through the legislative process at the moment, and the uniqueness of this scheme is that there will be two payments, one up front and then one that comes in at the latter stage after the public inquiry. So that's unique to any other scheme that's happened elsewhere, because there will be that first payment. I think that's important that we get that to people, victims and survivors, as quickly as possible, because they've been waiting for far too long to get to this juncture. So we're determined to get that payment made as quickly as possible as soon as the legislation has went through its course here. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to make progress in that fairly soon.
So that ends time for topical questions. To Deputy First Minister, members take your ease just for a moment before we begin questions to the Minister for the Economy.